Quick background on DrumG Technologies. DrumG is a network operator and builder of financial networks for financial institutions. As of right now, we have two products going. One is called the Titanium Network, which is focused actually what we're going to show today, which is the decentralized data engine. And a second is for the post-trade reconciliation process for asset managers, and that's called the Finsbury Network. But I'm here to talk to you today about the philosophy around the Titanium Network and show you the live implementation of how it works. Now, this implementation at the end of today, what I hope is that you're able to see a live showing working piece of technology for enterprise blockchains, for financial institutions outside of the crypto world, and then also understand the philosophy behind why we built it and why financial institutions are interested in it today. So I'll start off quickly. We'll run through quickly just the enterprise blockchain sector as we are right now. The whole narrative behind blockchain without Bitcoin really came about in 2014. We went through an insane hype cycle with it, from it solving everything from world hunger to poverty and everything in between. And now we're finally at a stage in 2019 where we're ready for business value use cases for enterprise blockchain technology. And so this really comes about as we finished out this hype cycle. This is the traditional Gartner curve. As we're coming out of the trial disillusionment, the financial institutions that put time, effort, and resources into enterprise blockchain technologies are asking where are their ROI on the investment that they took on enterprise blockchain? Where is the value proposition? What use case, what problems does blockchain actually solve for me? There's all of these benefits that people mention left and right, but it's primarily technology-driven, not problem-driven. So that's what we're seeing now in the state of this enterprise blockchain, is that it's kind of becoming boring in a sense. The reason being is because an enterprise technology stack isn't the most sexy thing in the world. But at the end of the day, there's been a lot of interest in financial services. So by the numbers of where we are, 300 institutions joining blockchain consortium, 90 central banks joined in projects or other consortiums as well, 4.5 billion invested between 2014 and 2018, 3,000 patents filed between 2014 and 2018, and 80% of banks working on blockchain expect to have live projects in 2019. And I'm here to show you one of those projects today. So let's quickly review where the state of the financial services market is today. I'm going to highlight three key issues. Now, my background is in finance. For those who are focused on this, this is primarily driven, this chart, around front office activity. So this is the investment bank and capital markets functions within the institutions. Stagnant revenue has been a primary key factor that people are now realizing consolidation and cutting cost centers within banks is a huge issue. This focuses on a lot of the middle back office technology or desks at these institutions, and they're looking for new ways of revenue generation. A second is increased competition. As we move away from the monopoly model within financial institutions, and we move away from these primary data sources and data owners, people are starting to enter the market quicker. And with that, they expect more flexible solutions, not solutions that they've seen in the old systems. And then the third, the one that I'll focus on a lot today, this is a chart from the New York Stock Exchange, just shows about the rising fee structures. And there's a statistic right after this I'll highlight, but the bottom line is that in the beginning, this is the same data flow that they were receiving in 2010, the same market data feeds. Now in 2018, 2017, this chart, you're seeing 400 to 500 to 1,000% increases in costs just to receive the same set of data they did in 2010, which is absolutely insane. These financial institutions are increasing this cost basis continuously because of these monopolized marketplaces. So let's focus on the pain points. What is the problem we're solving with data in the financial services industry? Price increases for data going up to 967 to 2,916% from 2010 to 2018. This is New York Stock Exchange reported data. Second, despite the cost increases, this has resulted in significant expense increases from firms and their clients. They're focused on this consolidation effort. They're focused on bringing these cost centers down, but the costs keep going up just to maintain the same businesses. So now we're seeing this dilemma, and we're seeing an actual need for market data to be revolutionized within the institutions. The third is simply, it's just to cover a lot of the access points for the same basic market information. Data underpins everything in financial institutions, from front to end. And now that we're making it more costly and more siloed off to receive some of the same data flow and same information, you're creating this destructive elements, and what I call here a destructive competition dynamic for the industry. And that's not something that's sustainable for the financial markets, and that's not something that's appropriate. A lack of data flow and a lack of transparency is how we see things like the 2008 financial crash. And so today we're focusing on the Titanium Network, and this is where things get real. We want to show you what the highlighted use case. I'll talk about the philosophy quickly, and then I'll show you it live working. Key value proposition of blockchain. With the introduction of the internet, For the whole unilateral process of any transaction in the world, it flattened the communication layer, digitizing communication between two counterparties. With blockchain, you were able to flatten not only the communication layer, but the processing layer and the shared perception layer so that I see what you see continuously. We both see the same thing at the same time. That was the primary value proposition of blockchain. So with that, what was applied is that this process was applied to the same unilateral processings, the same bank functions that existed. But that's not what we should be creating. There's a difference between business conducted digitally and a true form of new digital business. Business conducted digitally is applying DLT to these unilateral processes. Sure, we'll make a form go faster, we'll make a form be executed on a smart contract, but the whole 14-step process still exists. Today, we're going to show a use case directly so that two entities can transact with each other in something we like to talk about, the millionaire's dilemma. Two millionaires want to know who's richer, but they don't want to tell each other how much money they have. So that whole concept of how would you be able to do that? Well, in the same sense, all the banks want to figure out what are the other banks doing? How are they pricing other market data, especially in the over-the-counter market? And so we're looking directly for that engine of the data input analytics, the truth, and the distribution all in one engine function. And that's what the Titanium network does. So breaking this down a little bit further, the Titanium network, you can talk about it in three pieces. The first is pluggable analytics and services. So we're going to show ConsenSys services today. That's where it's initially applied, and I'll go into what that use case is. But you could plug and play a lot of different features, different services, different business functions into that layer so that in a trusted execution environment, any analytics you wanted to perform on the data, you could have done. The second is that since it's built on Quorum, Ethereal protocol, on top of it, you have the distributed ledger technology and also what we're talking about, an agnostic ingestion of data engines, which allows for an interoperable layer with blockchains. That's another topic of conversation. The automated truth and validation layer for the data. And then finally, the low-friction distribution that both cloud and DLT combined allow for. So that's the Titanium network, three key pieces. So now let's define the problem more distinctly. Let's drill down. What is the real problem? Any single instance of market data flow today in traditional financial markets, you have financial institutions sending market data to the market data as an analytics provider and then selling that data back to them. But the worst part is, on top of that, those market data providers are then enabled to have a full objective market picture, whether it's not the specific data, but the objective view of the data, and they resell that. So in the sell-side market institutions, so for those familiar in finance, these are the guys actually making the prices on a lot of the $544 trillion derivatives industry. These banks are not seeing the full market picture actively unless they increase their cost base to receive a lot of this information. So the pain points we're solving: bilateral data sharing, unilateral data processing, limited ownership of the submitted data, limited insight on the full market information, expensive margins, valuation regulation and audit time lag, and distribution transportation of data issues. All those at once, specifically for the ConsenSys service. So as I mentioned today, the ConsenSys service essentially is if I'm JP Morgan and I price anything in the over-the-counter marketplace. So over-the-counter derivatives make up $544 trillion in global financial activity. And this is a huge amount. This is what caused things like the 2008 financial crash. A lot of the derivatives markets do not have the clear insights because you can't just go to Bloomberg. You can't just go on Google and find the perfect price for a one-year max volatility or a 3-year swap option on Naki-Staki. You can't find these very bespoke products which make up a large amount of volume. So with what exists today is these services came about where they said, okay, sure, all the banks, give me your data. I'll aggregate it for you. I'll send you back pretty much a mean, and then I'll give you some statistics around that. That's a process that costs up to $10 million for banks every single year. And not only that, they don't own their data. And not only that, it takes up to a month to process for some of the exotic products. So the solution we'll show today is done in about 2-3 minutes to solve it. And that's what the Titanium network does. Here are the value propositions. Data ownership stays with the user. The financial institutions looking for these insights and ConsenSys values get to own their data at every single step of the process. Enablement of real-time data and analytical insight. Statistics are performed immediately and sent back so that the full market color is received by these major financial institutions. Enhanced regulator transparency. Although not plugged in yet, we imagine that the regulators will have a direct node access to see it. So rather than having the whole reporting process, it's like an 8-9 step process with each of the banks, they can see it in real time. order of magnitude cost reduction, that's for our sales pitch, I'll save that, unique market intelligence and tooling, and then also optimized price challenge process. So if they don't agree with the consensus price, how it's done today is phone calls and emails. We have an automated price challenge dashboard that we are enabled for the banks. And so with that, let's show you guys a live implementation of this. There we go. All right, so as I mentioned, we're going to go through one consensus cycle in this video. This is a video showing live code working. There's actually code output, so you know it's not just a mocked-up UI. It's built on Quorum, open source protocol, private blockchain network, and the reason being there's 3 layers of privacy on Quorum. You're labeled for hash-only transactions, which nobody sees, private bilateral transactions, which mean 2 counterparties can both see. Oh. And then also you have there we go. And also you have public transactions, which everybody in the network can see. So you have 3 layers of privacy introduced to the network. So what we're going to see quickly here is on the 2 top on the left and right, these are 2 bank views of the data that they're going to be sharing. In the middle, you have Quorum Maker, which just shows the ledger details, just to show you that the blockchain is actually updating in real time. And in the bottom, you have the log Z outputs, which just shows that the actual code is running. And we have a manual JumG node in here for the trusted execution environment. Now you will say this is something that the node is actually placed within the network. This node will be abstracted out of the network, ideally in the future, and not only that, the data will be anonymized and encrypted at every step of the way. So for the first step, the bank is submitting a set of data. This is for FX options. You see an individual client price for the individual data submission. Now this bank, let's call it Goldman Sachs, wants to know what the rest of the marketplace did. So this is the millionaire's dilemma. He'll submit it to the network, blockchain updates. You'll see all of the ledger updates. You'll see the block count updating with each of the new hash blocks or hash transactions being added to the blocks. And for the demo, we've already added the data for the second bank. And since we're running out of time here, I'm just going to fast forward quickly, just 2 or 3 seconds here. So now all the data is being uploaded onto the blockchain individually. And then we'll go ahead and trigger. There we go. I skipped it too far. There we go. So now this process for us in this demo takes about 2 minutes. Again, this is a process that takes up to a month to do for financial institutions. We trigger the output of the data, and now both of the views from the UI from both of the bank nodes here are able to download the consensus information. So now look at this and what it looks like. The Quorum allowed for the price consensus of the general marketplace, which for this demo had 7 nodes running on it. You're able to see a price consensus output of the total marketplace for FX options. And it's a completely agnostic data engine. Any currency, any tenor, any maturity, any specific price, any specific model of an OTC product can be submitted. And as long as there's other like products submitted in the network, you can receive consensus values and analytics on that data, allowing for a completely transparent process for the institutions to see the OTC data market in whole. And so with that, how much time do we have? A couple minutes for questions? All right. So I'll skip over the use cases, but we deploy cloud and DLT on it. Happy to answer the questions after that. And I'll end just with one last point, is that the whole idea around this, Accenture defined this really well, the new standard for market data and market data engines. Intelligent and automated. They should not be in the hands of manual processes. They should be automated calculations. Data-led and client-centric. Returning the data ownership to those who make it, not giving it up to market players such as Bloomberg and others. Open and accessible to the marketplace, agile and resistant to security failures, and simple and homogeneous so that it's easily understood by the network using it. These are going to be the data engines that fuel the future of Wall Street. Thank you.